And welcome back to another episode of Money Illuminated, the podcast where we turn big financial questions into clear, confident decisions. I'm here today again with the financial guru, Mr. Jack Saunders. Welcome, Jack. How was your weekend?
It was good, thanks. It was a sport-filled weekend. My football club continues to progress in all of the competitions, but I'm sure that will come crashing down at some point now and then. And my body is aching after playing paddle for like nearly 4 hours over the weekend. So hence I'm stood up to try and make sure that I don't get all horrible and uncomfortable. How was yours?
Mine wasn't too bad, thank you. But I must admit, another hard watch for you Arsenal fans, but you've scraped through yet again. You must be feeling pretty confident in terms of 4 competitions at the moment.
To be honest, the happiest part about it is just watching every other football fan in the country melt down over it. And it's just listening to all of that jealousy makes me feel so much better about it.
Yeah, I am one of those annoyed, jealous fans, unfortunately. So
I'm sure you are.
Brilliant. Well, over the last couple of episodes, we have really focused on retirement, pensions, and kind of the process behind it all, what people's options are, things to think about other than just the finances. So if anyone hasn't listened, we've done an episode around the mental side of retirement. We've also done an episode around what are your options with your pensions if you have a DC plan, a workplace pension, or a DB plan. What are really your options there? And I guess we're kind of finishing off this mini series in this episode with can I retire with 500k? It should hopefully be a really interesting episode for anyone in that kind of bracket. I appreciate 500k is not going to apply to everyone here, so it's more of a bit of a guideline. But anyone listening on Spotify, we will try and explain everything throughout. So if you're not watching on YouTube and have the visual cues, we will try and explain the method behind the chaos essentially throughout the episode today. But anything you want to kind of add to that, Jack, before we crack on?
No, I think it is one of those where if you are able to watch on YouTube, it's probably a better one rather than listening. We'll try our best, but we've got some visual tools and a cash flow tool that we use with our clients to really highlight the numbers and the charts and things. But yeah, I think this is a good one. It's a good example of probably slightly above the average level of wealth that we support people with when they come to retirement, but certainly one that's popular among those sort of senior directors and senior professionals for companies. So yeah, it's right in our ballpark of the type of advice we're giving every day, really.
Yeah, absolutely. So really the simplicity of what we've tried to do in this call and with the visual cues is we are essentially saying we have a couple. They are both 67 or just turned 67. They'll both be getting a full state pension. And between them, they have £500,000 in pensions to use. So they're the kind of assumptions that we're going to use today. And Jack's going to talk you through how that all adds up, what their options are. But ahead of that, I think it's best to kind of explain what the changes are to the state pension and when that's all going to apply. So the key thing to realize is that every April, in line with inflation and the triple lock that the state pension has, that the state pension for each individual has gone up to £12,547 a year. Do you know the weekly amount that is, Jack? It's 240 something, isn't it?
£241.30p, I think.
There we go. And that's why you're the technical expert for a reason. So, brilliant.
You make me sound really boring when you say that.
Well, I guess with that, we've got 2 state pensions here for a couple. £500,000 in personal pensions that they've built up. So kind of talk us through what we're going to be looking at and what I guess a couple's options are when it comes to retirement.
Yeah, so I think as we've covered in a couple of episodes before this, ultimately people have loads of different options with their pension pots, and we're not necessarily talking about their options with the state pension or a defined benefit scheme or anything along those lines. Those are relatively straightforward. This couple have a state pension each, so that's the best part of £2,000 a month after tax that's coming in for them, and that would probably see you through to a sort of minimum level of living throughout retirement if you were in that situation. We're looking at more of a comfortable standard of living because they've got £500,000 to work with in terms of those liquid pension assets that can fund their future. So the comfortable level is about 44,000 a year after tax. And ultimately, with that £500,000 pot that we're assuming this couple have, broadly speaking, they've got three options. The first option would be they could cash out the whole pot. Now, there are circumstances where people say to us, actually, is that worthwhile doing? Should I go ahead and do that? Generally speaking, if you've got £500,000, you'd get a quarter of it, most likely, tax-free. The rest you're going to pay income tax on. So a quarter of that number is, 125,000, I believe, which would then leave you with £375,000 that you would have to pay income tax on. That's going to push you right up into the highest rate. Your overall tax bill is going to be absolutely massive. Most people aren't going to do that. So it's an easy one for us to ignore.
Yep.
If they did do that, they'd be left with only the state pensions. That's about $2,000 a month between the two of them after tax. And then they would have the remaining funds of cashing out that money, which they can do what they want with, really. But it also gives you the issue of, well, where on earth do I put that money? How do I make it tax efficient? How do I get it beating the invisible evil of inflation over the next 2, 3, maybe even 4 decades? So cashing out, probably not an option for this couple in this scenario.
No.
The two options that are more seriously considered are annuities or drawdowns. Now, what can an annuity provide you if you have £500,000? Well, it depends on a number of factors. It depends on health and expected life expectancy and longevity. It depends on what you want the pensions to do after you die. Do you want it to pay to your spouse or your children and so on? It depends on whether you want inflation protection in there. And it also depends on whether you take the tax-free lump sum or not.
Yeah.
So in this example, this is using rough annuity numbers for a couple with £500,000 each. The overall level of annuity income they could buy with that might be in the region of £29,000 a year. Guaranteed for life, probably assuming about half of that continues to the survivor of the two if one of them passes away before the other. But that does mean that the other person who dies second, well, when they pass, nothing pays out from their pension. So structuring that can be a challenge, and it's worthwhile thinking about. But ultimately, if we're saying they need maybe £43,000, £44,000 a year, they've got a state pension each and then annuity income of £28,000, £29,000 a year, actually that's going to put them well beyond the comfortable level of living that the PLSA gives us. If they were to take a tax-free lump sum, that would change these numbers. So if you don't take the lump sum, you got to come back, or you can't come back for it in the future. Whereas, ultimately you probably would want it. But if you took it out, you'd get your $125,000 tax-free. You can do whatever you want with that. The residual annuity would probably be about £21,000, £22,000 a year. Okay, now these aren't guaranteed numbers. It is all circumstantial, but just as a rough guide, the tool that we've created here helps look at roughly what could be happening. And that probably, if we're looking at that option with the lump sum, and I think it's safe to say, Elliot, hopefully you'll agree, most people that would go down the annuity route would think about taking some form of lump sum. Purely because you can't come back for it in the future. So you lose that kind of benefit. And it is, let's face it, a huge benefit to pensions.
Yeah.
So an annuity is one option. I don't know if there's anything else you wanted to add on the annuity side at all, Elliot.
No, it is really difficult with annuity rates because they're constantly changing. So we're in a period of very good annuity rates, it'll be fair to say. So therefore, the £22,000, if you took the tax-free lump sum, is very good right now, but in a year or 2 years' time, that might only provide 17 or 18,000. So that constantly changes. Your health has a huge impact on how much you're going to be offered. And as you already alluded to, depending on how much inflation you want, how much spouse's pension benefits you want attached, all these factors have such a big impact to what that annuity rate and annuity quote will look like.
Yeah, for sure. And the inflation thing's a good one because this tool allows us to look at the difference of having inflation protection or not. So if we untick the maintain income box, you can then see the impact that we have in the sense of you'll have more up front. If you said, actually, I don't want my income to rise with inflation every year, instead of 22,000 a year in year one, it's bumping that right up. But that number will physically stay the same for the rest of your life. So the invisible evil, which is inflation, well, every year that you're getting £28,000, £29,000 a year, actually next year that's only worth 28,000. The year after it's only worth 26.5, and that continues to happen. So when you get into your late 70s, early 80s and so on, the kind of pound for pound number you're getting isn't keeping pace with what your bills are.
No.
The likelihood is you'll spend less as you get older. That's kind of a proven data, I suppose, where retirement spending does tend to fall every year. But then it can all of a sudden spike back up further down the line as well, depending on what health looks like and care homes and all of that kind of stuff. So there's a lot to consider, but ultimately annuities don't tend to be the most popular option for people, especially not on a kind of lifetime basis, really. A number of reasons for that, aren't there, Elliot? That you've got the fact that annuities used to be the only option people had, whereas now they're not. Crikey, it's 11 years ago now, I think, drawdown became a thing. I mean, I've been in the industry for just under that number, but it's crazy to think that's how long ago it was, but it's still kind of considered a new thing for some people. So drawdown became a thing, and that gives you flexibility and control, but also annuity rates just aren't as good as they were 20, 25 years ago. No. And you made a really good point, Elliot. They have become better, but they haven't gone from being terrible to being amazing. For me, they've gone from being quite awful to, okay, they're okay, but probably still not the best thing to do for most people. Drawdown tends to be the most popular. It's always worth having sort of advice and guidance and things from professionals around the options, because it can make sense to do one or the other or a combination of different things. But drawdown is more common now, mainly because of the flexibility that we've gone through previously in a prior episode. But that flexibility is really the key here. If we click into the kind of drawdown graph, realistically, what we can see is a number of different things. First things first is you can take your 25% tax-free all in one go if you want to, and it might make complete sense to do that for you. But it might make more sense to keep it within your pot and gradually take from it throughout the years to fund the level of expenditure that you're looking for. The flexibility of that is really, really key, and the protection that you need to kind of put in place for yourself throughout retirement with drawdown is also really key, and that's often where the tax-free lump sum can come in, and I'll touch on that again in a second. So here we're looking at the kind of orange bar. The grey bars are the state pensions, those are the same. The orange bar is effectively taking out of the drawdown pot. We can change the overall level of income to whatever we'd like to. So clearly, the more we increase that income, the sooner that orange bar, the flexible pot, the drawdown pot, will run out. So if we wanted our money to run out at bang on age 85, based on some assumptions we've made here around investment growth and inflation, we could be affording to pay ourselves in total about £54,000 a year. Okay, that's including the state pension. Remember, that's about 25,000 of that number. And if we said, actually, we don't quite need that number and we don't quite need 44,000, which is the comfortable standard of living, we could decrease the income we take, and that will see that pot of money last all the way through to age 100, for example. Here we've got, £3,000 a month, for example. So that flexibility is really key, probably more so because what we tend to see all the time, and again, Elliot, you see this with your clients just as much as we see it with mine, people spend more early on because they want to go and do things. Hopefully you're fit and able, and therefore you want to go on holiday. You want to do the long haul stuff and maybe treat yourself to a nicer flight. You want to go and do more meals out, theatre trips, whatever it is that you enjoy doing. You want to do more of it because you've spent decades working really, really hard, not having the time to go and do that stuff. Now's the time to enjoy it before ultimately time runs out. I know that's really depressing, but we talk to our clients about this all the time. There will come a time where your health will not allow you to do the things that you want to do. It's just fact. We've all got grandparents and great-grandparents and parents, etc. We've seen them go through this stuff before. We see it all the time. And there's a big difference between your lifespan and your health span. You could live 10, 15 years beyond what your health span actually allows you to go and do. So in the early years, having that flexibility of drawdown is absolutely hugely important. to having that freedom and doing those things, and not getting to the age of 85 and sitting back and thinking, I wish I did X, Y, and Z, but now I'm really happy because I've got a guaranteed income that's just paying me 20 grand a year more than I need when I'm 85. Annuities can look really good based on that, but actually, do you need the money then, or would you have rather had it 20, 25 years earlier? It's always things that we're talking to our clients about. And the other thing is, of course, the investments behind Drawdown are super, super important. And it is a scary world. And it's one that people just ignore. It's kind of, they throw it away, lock it in the cupboard, brush it under the carpet. But it's super, super important. Here, we've assumed somebody gets a relatively modest level of growth, actually. We're assuming they're getting growth of somewhere between 5.5% to 6% a year. But you account for inflation, you account for the costs involved with being in a drawdown plan. The real rate of return here isn't that high. What you can do, of course, is you can invest into things that grow more if it makes sense to do it, if you understand it, if you've got the right sort of protections in place for when things don't go so well. We're kind of going through that now with the US and Iran stuff, for example.
Certainly are, yeah.
Yeah, it's having an impact. It's a direct impact, and it's completely normal, right? It's very sad and it's horrible to see that it's going on, but the way markets are reacting to it, completely normal, and it happens all the time. Yeah. But it doesn't make it any more comfortable for people, right? It's still scary. It's still kind of unnerving and unsettles people, particularly if they're closer to retirement. We bang on about this stuff all the time. We kind of focus on the negative more than the positive, to be honest, because it's okay to be sort of worried and scared almost when it happens, because it's happening, it's real, but it's not okay to be surprised. That's what we say to our clients. We need to expect this to happen, and it will happen a fair few times throughout your retirement. It happens every year. The markets go down to some degree, but most years, 3/4 of the time, the overall performance for the year is positive. So it's all part and parcel of it. But this couple here, at the moment, we're assuming that they're kind of achieving a medium level of growth. If we were to change that and say, well, we assume they get a higher level of growth, we're not doubling or tripling their growth at all. We're quite simply saying, actually, we're going from maybe 5.5% to 7% a year on the assumptions. It would see that pot of money last much longer for them.
Yeah.
It's all the flexibility, and that's the freedom. What do we suggest to people to try and keep them sort of protected and invested through the good and the bad times? Well, it comes down to the investment principles and philosophies that we follow. We've done an episode on that before. Broadly speaking, diversify, low cost, stick to the plan.
Yeah.
Really, really important. And having a portfolio that allows you to stick to the plan when markets go down, just as much as when they go up, that helps people get the returns that the markets actually deliver, and the returns that hopefully are going to see them through to being financially free from the beginning of retirement and all the way to the end of that phase of life as well. We tend to suggest have a look at how much you're going to be taking out of your flexible investments, whether that's pensions or ISAs or whatever it is. But here we're saying you probably need about £18,000 to £19,000 a year coming out of those assets. Well, we would suggest having 2 to 3 years worth of that number in cash.
Yeah.
So if we round it, just so that I can do the math off the top of my head, let's imagine that's 20,000 a year. I play darts. I should know that. Right. If it's 20,000 a year, 3 lots of that is 6.
You've got this.
Yeah, I have. There we go. If it was 18,000, it would be 54,000. There we go. You did the maths degree. I didn't. So yeah, somewhere between 54 to 60,000 for this couple, as an example. Have that in cash, whether it's bank accounts, ISAs, premium bonds. It can be whatever it needs to be. It might be that you need to fund that by taking some money out of your pension from the 25% tax free, for example. You've got all of that freedom, those options. But once you've got that in place, that can protect you when markets decline. We're not talking a 1 or a 2% decline. It's completely normal and will happen hundreds and hundreds of times on a kind of one-day basis. But we're talking the market kind of goes down continuously, compounds down to a 20% drop or more. That's when you want to think about, should I really be taking significant amounts out of these investments now? Or does it make more sense to use that lifeboat fund that I set to the side? Now, if you were retiring, or this couple were retiring at 65 rather than 67, they're going to be more heavily reliant on their investments to fund their 44,000 a year worth of income.
Yeah.
So they would need that pot to be slightly bigger until state pensions come in. And then that pot, that lifeboat pot that we mentioned, could be slightly smaller.
Yeah.
Does that mean we say to clients, reinvest that money, go and do something different with it? It might be, but we might also say, well, there you go. You've just unlocked 10, 20, 30,000 pounds. Go and spend it, enjoy it.
Yeah.
Book something that you've never, thought you'd be able to do. Go and enjoy that stuff. It's all it's human, right? This stuff. It's looking at what this can do for you and what you can actually make your life look like. But we use these tools and other tools as well to really drill into the kind of high level. Actually, can I retire with 500,000? Can I retire with, a different number? What does it look like? How can I do it? These are really good to try and piece all of that together and show people the kind of reality of what the future can look like.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you very much, Jack. Explained that exceptionally well. And I think the Lifeboat Fund is a very key part to financial planning. It's a very key part to Drawdown. But as you alluded to, look at last year in the market, for example, we ended up with double figures in terms of growth. But in April, Trump announced his tariffs and everything dropped by 5+%. So it happens all the time without people really realizing it. And there's a key reason why Drawdown is the most popular option right now. And it's basically everything that you said, the flexibility. If you can get the planning right around it, it can really unlock the doors to live in the lifestyle that couples and people are looking to live, especially in those earlier years when they're fit, they're healthy, and they're trying to tick things off their bucket list, for example.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what it's all about, isn't it? It's making sure that people ultimately have that comfort of, you're not going to get into the later stages of life and panic that you haven't done things. It's always a balance between all the different risks and the potentials and what ifs and so on and so forth. You could be here all day talking about all of them, right? But these options are there, the flexibility of having all of the options available to you and some others as well, which aren't as popular, but should be considered. That's what this is all about, is balancing everything together, figuring out what's right for you and your planning and your future. And these tools are often a great place to start to look at that sort of stuff.
They certainly are. And I think hopefully to summarize this, there's two very good options there for a lot of people. There's the secure option in terms of an annuity, but it comes with its own flaws to some extent, and it might not be the right thing for everyone. But based on this example, it should provide, based on current annuity rates and based on the standard person or couple, a sufficient amount of income to get that kind of moderate level based on the Retirement Living Standards Guide. And then the other option, flexible drawdown, again, it comes with those risks and perhaps a few flaws, but offers a lot of flexibility, offers a lot of freedom when it comes to retirement. And again, based on the graphs and what we've gone through today, it shows that there's another route there that people can explore to kind of meet that lifestyle that they're looking for. So I think it's a really good example to show 500,000 is a fantastic level of saving, and alongside the state pensions can provide a very, very healthy income in retirement for a lot of people.
Yeah, definitely can. And the way it's split and the tax planning and all of that stuff around it as well, it adds to the complexity. Obviously, that's ultimately why you and I exist in our job roles, Elliot. It's to help people manage all of those different 100-piece jigsaw puzzles to create a clear 1,000-piece puzzle. Right, that's what this is all kind of about. But I think that covers enough to give people an idea of everything, and probably enough for us to wrap up.
Absolutely does. So that's the end of our mini kind of retirement series, I guess. Our next few episodes we're going to be moving over to inheritance tax and estate planning. So stay tuned for future episodes in that space. But for now, thank you very much. This has been Money Illuminated, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, everyone.